So we'll see hybrid inheritance. Already we have seen hierarchical, multiple and multi-level inheritance. So now today we'll see hybrid inheritance. So look at this program. I'm defining how many classes, totally 4 classes I'm defining. The first class is VGIT, second one is MGIT, third one is CBIT, and fourth one is JNTU. So you observe how the hierarchy is constructed, that is the inheritance is used here. So VGIT is a super class. So for that you have a subclass called MGIT, and then uh, CBIT is subclass for MGIT, sorry VGIT only. So totally altogether for VGIT you have two subclasses, MGIT and CBIT. Then again JNTU is derived from both MGIT and CBIT. So this is what we discussed yesterday, right, about hybrid or multipath inheritance. So we have combined what two types of inheritances here. One is multiple inheritance, the other one is hierarchical inheritance. So deriving MGIT and CBIT from VGIT is nothing but hierarchical inheritance, and deriving JNTU from MGIT and CBIT is multiple inheritance. So we have combined both these two inheritance to form this hybrid inheritance. Okay. So what is there in VGIT? A simple function, first function 1, and it will display a message this if this function is in VGIT. Then in MGIT you have function 2, this will print a message this function is in CBIT. Then in class CBIT you have function 3, and it will display this function is in MGIT. And in JNTU class you have a message this function is in JNTU. Okay, so simple classes only just to demonstrate how to use hybrid inheritance, that's it. So I'm creating an object for JNTU. So when you create an object for JNTU you can access all the other remaining 3 classes functions methods, right? So using that object I'm calling function 1, function 2, function 3 and function 4. So let us run the program. So you'll get all the 4 methods in all of those 4 classes. The message is this function is in VGIT, similarly CBIT, MGIT and JNTU. So this is very simple hybrid inheritance. So uh, now that you have understood different types of inheritance, the other one is left. What is that one? Single inheritance, right? So anyhow that is a simple example, and we have demonstrated during introduction of inheritance that program. So we'll see the use of super keyword. So you know we have something called super keyword in Java. So you have that super keyword even in Python also, but the super keyword has only one purpose in Python, unlike in Java which has 3 purposes. Okay, so what is the purpose here is to simply invoke the superclass constructor. That is the only purpose for which you are going to use this super keyword. So yesterday we have seen how we invoked the superclass constructors, right? So we have used the superclass name dot init method name, right? So instead of using the class name you can use a super keyword. So let me show you that with an example program. So I'm defining here a base class or super class called person. It has a constructor which receives 2 parameters, f name and l name, which stands for first name and last name. They are parameters. Then I'm creating 2 object variables, self dot first name, self dot last name, and assigning f name and l name to these respectively. Then another method, print name, which does not receive any parameters. So this will simply print the first name and last name of the person. Then we have defined one class here. Okay, so another class called student. This is a subclass for person. So this will cover what type of inheritance. This is single inheritance or simple inheritance, right? So there is only one superclass and one subclass, which is nothing but single inheritance. So in the subclass student, I am defining init method here. So it receives two parameters, f name, l name. Then look at how I am calling the constructor for the superclass from the subclass constructor. I am using super. You need to use super followed by parenthesis. You cannot simply use super keyword like this. Okay, I'm creating an object for subclass student and passing first name and last name, and then calling the method print name of the superclass. Okay, this is very simple. Let me remove this parenthesis here for super. So you will get an error, right? So we cannot make a call to that superclass constructor simply using the super keyword. You have to use that super keyword in the form of a function. So this will actually return an object. So using that object, this init method will be called. Okay. So now let me put this super in comment and use the next is two statements which are already in comment. Now I'm removing those two comments. So what I am doing here is, instead of making call to the superclass constructor like we do in Java, I'm using the super keyword only. Dot first name is equal to f name. Super dot last name is equal to l name. So let us see what is going to happen, whether this will work or not. So you have a error here, can't set attributes of built-in extensions type super. Okay, so this will not work with object variables. In Java we have three purposes. One is invoke the superclass constructor, which is hidden by the subclass. Second purpose is invoke superclass overridden methods, and third purpose is access superclass hidden variables, hidden instance variables. These are the three purposes you have in Java, right? But in Python we have to use uh, this only for constructor, for invoking the superclass constructor. So that too, how to use it in the form of a constructor function. This will actually return an object using which this object is nothing but object of type person. Okay, so how this is going to return an object means, because we have mentioned for student class the parent class as person, that is the super class as person. So when you use this super function like this will return an object of type super class for the current existing class in which constructor you are making a call to the super class constructor. So the current class is student, and for that, what is the superclass? You have mentioned person. So it will return an object of that type, and using that object you are making a call to that constructor. So that is the meaning of this super followed by parenthesis. It is just like a constructor for a class which returns an object. How you are creating an object for a class? So this is how you are creating, right? So name of the class and followed by within the parenthesis, if any parameters you'll specify. If it does not receive any parameter, if the constructor does not receive any parameter, then you'll simply leave the parenthesis empty. So that is going to return a object for that class, right? So in the same way, this also will act like that, and it will return an object for the superclass of the current class. So what is the current class? Student. And what is its superclass? Person. So the object for that person class will be returned and substituted here, and with that you are making a call to init method of the superclass. Earlier, how did we make a call to this? Instead of using super, we have used the class name of the superclass like this, person dot init, right? So instead of that, now you can use this super. So these are not valid, so you cannot use them like this. You cannot use the super keyword to access the object variables of the person class. Okay, so this will print what, whatever the parameters you have passed for first name and last name, so they will be printed. Okay, so now that you understood inheritance and different types of inheritance in Python, let us see a new topic called composition. Yesterday I was telling you about something called composition, right? So composition has no relationship with inheritance. It is a different concept, but you need to learn it after inheritance. And let us compare composition and inheritance. Okay. So what is composition means? So look at the doc string here in this program. A class can contain object of another class as its member. This process of building complex object from simpler objects is called composition or containership. So composition or containership both mean the same. Okay. So what is this composition or containership? If one class contains another class object as its member, then that is nothing but called as containership or composition. Okay, a class can contain object of another class as its member. That is the meaning of composition. So what is going to happen, instead of creating a simpler object, a complex object will be created, because when you create an object for one class, again in that class you will have object for another class, right? So that's why we call it as a complex object. Okay, so now if you look at this program, two classes are defined, class 1 and class 2. So in class 1, two methods are defined. I'm not defining any constructor there. I'm defining two methods. One is set, second one is get. Set method receives two parameters x, y. Get method does not receive any parameter. Okay. Then in set method, we are creating two object variables, self dot a and self dot b, and assigning them the values of x and y respectively. And in get method, you are simply displaying those object variables a and b values using two print statements. And coming to class 2, so remember we are not using inheritance here, so you don't have a superclass for 2. So 2 is not a subclass for 1, or 1 is not even a superclass for 2. So in 2 class also, in class 2 also, we are defining two methods. One is compose and the second one is show. So for compose, we are passing two parameters m and n, and in that compose we are creating two object variables, sorry, one object variable you are creating, so this one. So look at the object variable, how it is created. Is it a normal variable or an object? It is an object. So how to create an object for a class? Simply use that class name followed by parenthesis open and close. This will make a call to the constructor of that class, and that will return an object for that class. So now self.obj is given as given the value returned by the one constructor. So the value returned is nothing but an object for the class 1. So self.obj now will become what? An object for class 1. So what we have done here is, in class 2 we have created one object variable, but object variable, but that object variable is not an ordinary variable. Instead, it is a object of another class called one. So this is what compositionship, right? We mentioned at the beginning. A class can contain object of another class as its member. So what is this self.obj? It is an object of class 1, and that is made as a member of class 2. So normally every class will have members like methods and class variables and object variables, but those class variables and object variables will be holding ordinary or primitive data type values like integer, float, strings, and even lists, also tuples, also dictionaries. But we cannot we didn't see how to add an object as uh, a member to a class, right? So that we are doing now here. So I'm creating an object variable for class 2, which is nothing but an object of class 1. But even though it is an object, you cannot directly mention its name with a simple name. You have to use the self keyword for that. Self.obj is equal to 1. Then using that self.obj that we created in the previous statement, I'm making a call to set method. So because self.obj is now an object for class 1, you can invoke all the methods that are defined in that class, right? So I'm invoking set method and passing m comma n. What is m comma n? For compose method, whatever parameters you are passing, those parameters you are in turn passing them to set method. So they will be copied into x and y. So x will have value of m and y will have value of n. Now again in turn here set method is assigning the value of x and value of y to a and b. So by calling compose method, what you are doing is you are passing m and n values to integer values or some other values, and you're passing the same m and n values to set method of the one class. So they'll be copied into xy, and then they are in turn are copied into a and b. So you are doing nothing but you are initializing the object variables of class 1. What are those object variables? Self.a and self.p, right? By making a call to compose. Then show method, it is simply using this object that we created here for class 1. It is calling get method. In compose we have called set method, right? Now in show method you are calling get method using that same object. So what is get method going to do? It is going to print the values of a and b, object variables a and b of class 1. And outside the class, I'm creating an object for class 2 and making a call to compose, and I'm passing 5 comma 10. So compose in turn will make a call to set method, and it will set the values of object variables a and b of class 1 to 5 and 10. Then I am making a call to show method. Show method is again in turn making a call to get method. So get method, what is it going to do? It is going to display object variables a and b values. So as such, the output for this program, so the output for the program will be simply a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 10. So that is what we are printing in the print statements in get method. So that values will be printed. Okay. So this is called as composition. So now let us see a little bit complex program using the same concept of composition. So now look at this program. So watch it carefully. We are creating three classes. One is learner, second one is teacher, and third one is person. And we are creating objects for person here at the bottom. Yeah, so let us come back to this concept, this bottom lines later, but let us first see what are classes learner and teacher and person going to do. So when you come to the learner class, it has a constructor which does not receive any parameter, but it is creating a object variable self dot classes, and that will be a list, Python list. Okay, and it is an empty list. So you know how to create an empty list in Python, right? So you'll mention the variable name is equal to square bracket open and close. So instead of that list being used outside of a class, if you are using it as a member of a class, then you have to use a self keyword for that also. So even when you use tuple or a dictionary also, you have to use a self keyword when you make it as a member of a class, that is object variable of a class. Okay, so now this self dot classes is an object variable of type list items in Python. So the constructor is simply creating an empty list called self dot classes. Then you are defining another method called enroll method, which receives one parameter course. And what is this enroll method doing is using this self dot classes uh, list, Python list that we created. I'm calling append method. So you know in Python list what is the purpose of append method? It is going to append the a new element at the end of the existing list. Because the existing list is empty, when you call this append method and pass as parameter this course, whatever value you pass to this course variable, course parameter, that will be appended at the end of the Python list. Okay, then coming to the class teacher, it also has one constructor, and this constructor is now creating another empty list. So this list is nothing but self dot courses underscore taught. Okay, so this is also another empty Python list. Then we are defining a method called assign teaching, and this receives one parameter called course. Then you are making a call to self dot courses underscore taught dot append. So this is nothing but you are making a call to the append method by using this empty Python list that you created earlier in the constructor. So what is that you're doing? You are appending a course to the this Python list called courses underscore taught. So this list is related to the learner, that is a student, and this list is related to teacher, that is faculty. So learner will be the learner list will contain the list of courses the learner will be learning, and the teacher's list will be containing the list of courses he can teach or he has already taught. So that is the purpose of creating these lists. Okay, so to assign a course that has been taught by a teacher, we'll be calling assign teaching, and to add to enroll for a particular course, the student or a learner will call a enroll method, which will add that course for which you have enrolled into the list called classes, self dot classes. So that is the uh, definition of both the classes learner and teacher. And now let us go to the third class called person. So in this also I'm creating the constructor, but look at this constructor, it has one self parameter by default. We'll be using for every method of a class, even constructor also. Then look at the next set of parameters. How many parameters are there? 1, 2, 3 and 4. So you have name, the first parameter, and second parameter is number. Third parameter is learner is equal to none, teacher is, and fourth parameter is teacher is equal to none. So what type of parameters are these? We have discussed about functions with different types of parameters, right? Keyword parameters, default parameters, required parameters. So what type of parameters are these two? They are default parameters. That means if you don't pass any value for these two parameters, the next last two parameters, then a none value will be assigned to that. Okay, so in the constructor what I am doing is I am initializing the self dot name object variable. That means we are creating four different object variables like self dot name, self dot number, self dot learner, self dot teacher, and we are assigning them with the name value. This name The self dot name is assigned with this parameter name, self dot number is assigned with the value of parameter number, and self dot learner is assigned with the value of learner parameter, and self dot teacher is assigned with the teacher parameter. If no values are passed for these two, learner and teacher, then they will be holding none value. Okay. Then show method is defined, which does not receive any parameter, but what is this going to do? It is simply going to display self dot name object variable value, self dot number value, self dot learner dot classes. Learner dot classes is nothing but what? A Python list that we created for learner class. And self dot teacher dot courses dot is a Python list created for teacher class, right? So what is that you are doing here is you are going to use this learner and teacher as objects for learner class and teacher class respectively. So then only you can make a call to that, you can access the list that is created in learner class and the list that is created in teacher class, right? So what is the name of the list that we created in learner class? It is classes, right? So this is the list that we created, self dot classes. Then coming to teacher class, we have created a list called self dot courses underscore taught, right? So you are just making a call to this, you are just printing those list values using the last two print statements. So you must understand that when you create an object for this person class, you need to pass name as a string and number, any either a string or a numeric value. But learner is nothing but an object for learner class, that is teacher class, sorry, student class, that is learner. Okay. And teacher is nothing but an object for teacher class. So look at how I'm creating that. I'm creating an object for person class p1, but when I'm passing parameters to the constructor of person class, the first two are simply strings. The name is given as xyz and number is given as 123, but the remaining two parameters, which are which are default parameters, what you are passing to them for the third one, you are passing an object of type learner class. So if you simply make a call to the learner constructor like this is going to return an object of learner class, right? And this is going to return an object of type teacher class. So you are doing nothing but you are passing an object of learner class and an object of teacher class as the last two parameters to the constructor of person class. That means these two. Then you are assigning these objects to whom? Self dot learner variable and self dot teacher variable. So now what are these two variables, self dot learner and self dot teacher? They two are nothing but objects. They are objects of other two classes, teacher and learner. So this is nothing but a composition, right? This is an example of another example of composition. So what is composition? If an object of another class is created as a member of an existing class, then we call it as composition. The process is called as composition, right? So we have seen in the previous example program. So the same thing you are doing it here also, but instead of directly creating an object inside the class method or constructor, we are passing those objects as parameter to the constructor of the person class. So to the person class constructor, you are passing objects of learner class and teacher class as parameters, and then you are assigning the parameter values to the uh, two object variables called self dot learner and self dot teacher. So now what are the self dot learner and self dot teacher? They are nothing but objects of learner class and teacher class respectively, right? So now using the self dot learner and self dot teacher, I can call the methods of learner class and teacher class respectively. So what is the method uh, defined in learner class? Enroll method. Similarly, what is the method defined in teacher class? It is assign teaching. So what I'm going to do here is, what I'm doing there in the next step, what I'm doing, I'm creating see, I'm using this object p1 that is created for person and making a call to learner dot enroll p1 dot learner. What is learner? The object that we created for learner class, right? Which is there in person class. So I'm using object for person, that is p1 dot the learner object that is created in person, that is learner, dot method name that we are calling from learner class is enroll, and for that, what is the course name I'm passing? A string parameter mtech, right? Then similarly, using the same p1 person object, i'm I'm using the teacher object which is there in person class as an object variable. Okay, and then making a call to assign teaching method of teacher class and passing a course name called btech. That means the teacher is going to teach subjects for btech course, and the learner is going to enroll for mtech course, right? Then using a print statement, I'm displaying learner details and calling p1 dot show. Okay, so the enroll method, what is this going to do? When you call the enroll method, it is simply assigning the course to the learner, and assign teaching method is simply enrolling the course that the teacher will be teaching. Then you are displaying those details by making a call to show method. Where is show method? It is in person class. So what is this displaying? It is displaying the name, number, and then a learner course registered and teacher course registered. So let us see the output for this program. So learner details are displayed as xyz 123, and because we have created list, so that list is going to display for student their course enrolled is mtech, and for teacher the course enrolled is for teaching is btech. Okay, so this is another way of using the concept called composition, using the concept called composition. So instead of making a call to enroll method and assign teaching method here, you can also call them from, say, show methods print statement here directly. Yes or no? I can make a call to the show method, and here in the print statement I can make a call to the enroll methods here itself, right? Or I'll put this in comment. Instead of doing this way, I can make a call to show method here, so this way also I can do. Instead of creating instead of calling the enroll method and assign teaching method, by using person object p1 and again dot uh, teacher object and learner object, like this. So in this case you are using the person object dot the teacher learner object learner dot enroll, right? So instead of doing that, this way also you can do. You can make a call to show method here, right? So anyhow you are calling show method p1 dot show here, right? So when this is called directly, this will first display name and number of the student enrolled, and then after that you are making a call to learner dot enroll and teacher dot assign teaching lists. right? So these will be creating the list containing this mtech and btech. So when you in the next two statements, using the print statement, you are simply displaying those values. Okay, I have given double L there, so it is only single L. So this way also you can do. Okay, so this is a little bit complex uh, way of using composition. The previous program uses simple way. Simply directly you are creating object for class 1 in class 2 like this. So in this program what you are doing is, instead of creating directly object in class person for class teacher and class learner, we are passing those objects for learner and teacher as parameter to the constructor of person class, and then you are assigning those objects in turn again to uh, self dot learner and self dot teacher object variables. So now self dot learner and self dot teacher object variables will become objects for learner class and teacher class respectively. So now you can use these objects self dot learner and self dot teacher to make a call to learner class method enroll this way, and teacher class method assign teaching this way. So after you make a call, then you can also access the lists that you created there in those two classes, right? So what is the first list that is created in learner class? It is classes, self dot classes, and in teacher class you have created courses underscore taught, right? So those values I'm accessing them by using the self dot learner object and self dot teacher object for learner class and teacher object, teacher class respectively. So this will print the list values. So because there is only one item in the list, so there will be only one item displayed. So if you want to add more items, then you can call this enroll method and assign teaching method multiple times, so that multiple values will be created. So now the student name is XYZ and his number is, that his roll number is 123, and these are the courses that he enrolled for, and these are the courses the faculty or the teacher is going to teach, that they are assigned, the teacher is assigned for teaching. Okay, so in that way you can add as many as you want. Okay, so understood this composition.